Welcome to the Learning Project Network, where we learn through stories to make a change. The Learning Project Network, an organization dedicated to social justice issues. We are dedicated to learning about issues that impact children, families, and communities to help start conversations that lead to solutions. We believe that through storytelling and peer support, individuals can better understand how experiences lead to outcomes.
Hey everybody, it's Stephanie with the Learning Project. I am back again with another great podcast. Welcome to Girl Get a Doula. And let me tell you, I got Yokebed here with me, and she is one of my doulas that I'm going to interview today. I'm so excited. Welcome.
Hey.
I'm coming with all the energy, you guys, today because we have been going through a really amazing series this month for Black History. And let me just make sure I say this right. Black History should not be put into a month. It should be part of American history. It is a hit. It is part of our history. We should know it. It should be everywhere we go. We should know the ins and outs of many people's culture because we are a mixture of people who live in this land, and we should be all seen, represented, and the history should be taught the right way. So I want to make sure I say that before we start this podcast because I want that message to be heard loud and clear. But today we are going to be focusing on 5 ways to heal, and Yokebed has got some amazing tips for us today. So I'm so excited. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, it is a pleasure to be here. Definitely a pleasure to be here.
I cannot wait till we jump into this because when we were talking about like the outline of this, it literally just made me so excited to just think about what people are going to learn and how these words are going to set so many people free. So Yokebed, tell us a little bit about who you are and how did you get into this work of being a doula?
So I am a certified, I'm gonna go through the scroll, a certified birth and postpartum doula, a certified life coach, belly binding specialist. I am a wife, a mother of 6. I'm a whole daughter out here in these streets, like everything. And birth work started for me over about 15 years ago when my first nephew was born.
Wow.
And just the experience that my sister-in-law endured throughout her laboring process and stuff, it kind of sparked interest, like, okay, there has to be more ways to kind of assist people, especially women and women of color, through this process. And so then fast forward a few years down the line when I had my first son and we started out going through just the typical, your everyday appointments at the doctor's office. You wait an hour to be seen just for the doctor to talk to you for like 10 or 15 minutes and then send you on your way. And after like going through a couple of appointments, I looked over at my husband and I was like, this can't be life. Like, what else is there? What other options do we have? And we started researching options just personally for ourselves. And then that birthed forth where I am today with having Blessed Queens Doula Care and being able to just provide the wisdom, the knowledge, and the understanding that I have to other women so that they don't have to just kind of wing it through pregnancy and not know what they're getting themselves into, and also be able to understand like there's options out there. And so aside from all those options and just knowing like, hey, you got somebody by your side to assist you, another thing has been birthed forth out of the last couple of years of the service that I've been providing, to where I'm realizing now that for me personally, and then those that I've been assisting, there's some things that we just got to heal through. And it's like, until you heal through those things, your birth experience is not going to be the experience that you truly desire it to be. And so I'm thankful for just this journey that I've been on, and now to be in a position to be able to help guide other women through this process so that they can heal and then help themselves through this labor and delivery process.
Okay, we jumping in this, y'all. Okay, we are going to be tearing this thing all the way up. So let's talk about, what do people typically need to heal from? What are some of the things that you see with the people that you work with that you're like, these are the things that people typically are suffering in silence about, or they're screaming out loud and people don't understand what they're actually seeing and experiencing?
A lot of it, honestly, is traumas. And it's traumas from sometimes their own just personal experiences, feeling like they don't have a voice in situations.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's because they may have been silenced as youth, or growing up in households where it's like, you can't speak, you can't do X, Y, and Z. What goes in the house stays in the house, those type of things, to where a lot of us have built up walls and shut down to now you feel like if I speak out and say something, maybe that person's not going to take me seriously, or they're not going to understand what I have or what I'm feeling. So I'm just not going to say anything. And so that rolls over into their pregnancy and their birth experience to now you have doctors dictating or telling you, hey, you need to have an induction, or your baby's too small, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And rather than us stepping up and asking questions, we just kind of shy to the background and then just kind of go with the flow. And then when we reflect back on our experiences, it's like, man, if I would have just spoken up, maybe my experience would have been different. Maybe I wouldn't have had to have that C-section. So one of the number one traumas that I'm seeing that people truly just don't realize they need to heal from until it's too late. It's just that lack of initiation, of being able to just kind of step in and speak forth when they know that they truly desire to.
Let's jump in it, y'all. I am literally trying to keep myself together as you're talking because we're so conditioned to suppress what we think and what we feel and what we are dealing with in our bodies as women. We get to a point where we are starting to listen to this and it becomes a real part of who we think we are, and suppressing those voices, even though we know something's wrong or we need something. When we're talking about breastfeeding, we know that Black women are the least likely to actually breastfeed, but we're not talking about why. When we look at women in general and why they're not able or don't want to breastfeed, there's a lot of trauma and stress that is placed right against that. Some women are dealing with abuse issues, sexually, mentally, physically, and they are trying to nurse their child, and there's like a disconnect, and it's a very violating thing. And it's like, how do you overcome that? Why are we addressing that after the fact, right? When you're pregnant? Why are we not having conversations about this like during the time or before the time actually takes place when that person has a child? We look at sex ed and we say the first thing, and most people know, is like, you just don't want to get pregnant. That's it, right? Yeah. But we're not having the full conversation about how sacred your body is, or how protective you need to be of your body, guy or girl. Okay, because most of this conversation is just for the girl, right? And so when you're talking about healing, and we're talking about the reasons why people really have that disconnect or struggle with healing, you hit it right on the head. So what's your first tip for us when it comes to working through this journey of healing before or after or during your pregnancy?
So this one can definitely apply at any stage, whether it's preconception and you're just kind of anticipating, I want to get pregnant down the line or something, or if you're already pregnant, or if you're even have already had a child and now you're into the postpartum. Yeah. One of the first things that I like for people to just kind of reflect on is conducting a self-evaluation. And that's pretty much just understanding how you think of yourself and how that can help you pinpoint the areas that you need help in. A lot of the times we don't take time to just self-reflect. Take some time to just kind of journal or write out, like, how do I view myself? Like, there's been just personal experience. There's been times where I've just struggled with my own personal beauty and not feeling like, I hear you telling me the words that I'm beautiful, but I don't feel beautiful today. And so you spend time talking yourself out of that, and then it causes a lot of self-doubt. So conducting a self-evaluation. How do I view myself? What am I thinking of myself? So now I can go back and come against those words that I've spoken against myself so that they no longer have a hold over me.
Ooh, okay, y'all.
We're going to pause right there.
We're going to pause. Yeah, we're going to put a pin in this because somebody's going to need to hear this. I think one of the hardest things about going through infertility is learning the beauty in the darkness. And when you have so much negativity about yourself, that is a process in itself to go through, because you are holding a child in your body that is feeling all the feelings and feeling all the emotions. And you're connecting that child to those emotions at a very, very, very vulnerable stage. It's their DNA that's being made up at this time. And what you're talking about is so deep, and we don't think about that being a part of the actual journey. And also that part about journaling, like taking time to reflect. We're in such a rat race of a world. I struggle with it. Like right now I'm supposed to be like doing certain things, and I will tell you, I have to walk and I have to journal. Like those are my two things that I started off with today. I started off with some meditation. I'm just like stopping and just being grateful for where I'm at, and thinking about, wow, I was able to do this and I was able to do that. Even though there were challenges, like we don't think about those things. We just think about how bad we are or how negative we are. Why is that? Why do so many people have that, like that mentality of that piece in their life, like when they're looking at how they're dealing with life and journeying through life?
So it's generational. That's as simple as I can put it. When we think back to our foremothers and forefathers, we don't realize that a lot of the things that they endured have been passed down genetically. You said it perfectly. When we're pregnant and our baby's DNA is developing, they're feeling every emotion that's going on within us. That's why a lot of the times, like I remember one thing my mom told me when I first got pregnant, like, don't you be out there talking about people, because that baby could feel everything you're saying. Or like, you can't be sitting here just crying all the time, because that baby can feel those emotions. And when you're young, sometimes you just kind of be like, whatever, like mama just talking. But it's so real and it's so true. And so recognizing, like I said, it's generational. These are things when we think back to the slavery times when children were being snatched away from their mothers, or our mothers were delivering babies and then going out to feed somebody else's child. Like while they were in the midst of those pregnancies and in that postpartum, even in postpartum, like these things are being passed through emotionally through our breast milk and stuff to these babies. So it's not like, oh, my baby's here, I'm breastfeeding, so now I can just feel however I want to feel. No, that baby is still connected to you. And there's still like neurons and things that are being passed along. There's still development that is still taking place. So that's why we just have to, for one, take a step back, self-evaluate, and start the process of healing ourselves, because not only are we healing ourselves, but we're redeeming our bloodline. Because we're going back into the depths of where this thing all started from, and saying, okay, I see you back there, great grandma, and what you dealt with. And so I'm gonna make it amends, a portion of me to heal from that. So now I can redeem all the rest of our lineage, so that my children and my grandchildren don't have to continue the legacy of something that you never wanted to start, but because of the circumstances started.
If you didn't hear that, take a second, rewind this, play it back. Because let me tell you, what you just said hit so hard for me, because I just created these shirts says healing first, sis. Like before you do anything else, before you get that job, before you get that friend, before you get that guy, before you have that baby, before you make that million, before you do, heal yourself first. Because that healing is not just for you, it's for your ancestors. I just put a quote together too, and it says healing, Black History Month is about healing your ancestors' past. Like we are our ancestors' greatest and wildest dreams, and the things that they see that we are doing right now, they couldn't even imagine it. Do we still have a long way to go? Absolutely. Do not get it twisted. But let me tell you, everything that person survived for, it's not in vain, right? I love that point. What's your next point for us for when it comes to healing?
So next point is just acknowledging that we do have fears, that we do have traumas, that we do have areas of hurt and pain that constantly affect us. It goes back to when I mentioned building that wall. So sometimes we build that wall, and you've had that wall up for so long that it's just like, well, this is me. These things don't necessarily bother me. But when you take a step back and you start writing out why you feel the way you feel, or what you're feeling that day, you realize that now you're operating and you're functioning out of a fear that you have. You have a fear of being rejected, so you don't place yourself in certain circumstances or situations. You know that if you step foot or go and speak to this person, they're going to remind you of someone, and it's going to bring up a hurtful past or some kind of pain or something. So you kind of try to eliminate those things rather than addressing things head on. And so another way of acknowledging those fears is being able to know what specific things will trigger certain responses and reactions.
Right.
And so, like I said, you acknowledge it. I know that this circumstance causes me to fear. Let me address that circumstance. So now I can walk out boldly, and I don't have to keep settling for less than because I'm afraid or I fear something or I fear a situation. So we're going to start acknowledging those fears, those traumas, and those areas of hurt and pain that affect us on the regular.
Okay, y'all, this is like so deep. I feel like you just like reading me, like you just got me wide open for the whole world, transparency up in her. Like, for real, I'm just like, you know, sometimes you have to take a moment and pause and really think about how this strong woman syndrome, and for some people, the strong Black woman syndrome, have really impacted our behaviors and how it impacts our ability to ask for help and also accept support. This is a very interesting point. How do you get your clients to go into this? Because a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't you go to a counselor for this? Why wouldn't you just, you know, we're having this conversation, which is nurses and doctors cannot be everything for everybody. Okay. They cannot. Like the way their schedules are, you'll be lucky to get the doctor that you met with to deliver your baby. And sometimes you don't even know the doctors that are going to deliver your baby. You're meeting with somebody that's completely different and is just sharing the information with the doctors that are going to be possibly delivering your baby. There's such a disconnect in this. How do you get your people to take this journey and to accept this journey? Because people are probably listening to this and are like, okay, that's a no-brainer. But to get there and to say I'm going to go through this journey, that's a whole nother story.
That is real. And honestly, it starts from a regular everyday conversation where I usually start out by asking my clients, what are your desires for your birth? And everybody's response is, well, I just want to have a healthy, safe delivery. What does that look like to you? Because a safe delivery could mean that you have to go in for a C-section. How would you feel if you had to go in for a C-section? Now we're bringing up all the fears that you may have. Well, I don't necessarily want to go in for a C-section, or I've been traumatized by hospitals in previous experiences growing up, so I absolutely don't want to deliver in a hospital. Now we're going to start to get to the nitty-gritty of why you have these fears, because we all know that birth is not something that you can control. It's spontaneous. It's going to go and flow the way that the Most High has already orchestrated it to flow for you for that day. And so if we come into the birth space with our fears, with our traumas, with our hurts and our pains, all we're doing is stalling a process that's supposed to naturally occur on its own. So you come in with fears of a hospital, and now there's talks of you have to get scheduled for your C-section because of X, Y, and Z. Now every anxiety in your body is shooting up to the roof. And so if you allow these things to go unaddressed, now you're going in, and it went from just a scheduled C-section to now your anxiety is kicking in, and now it's an emergency C-section because now your baby is feeling what you felt. So now their heart rate is dipping. And so it's one red flag after another that's sparking all these different changes in your body, because we didn't take the time somebody didn't take the simple time to ask you, how do you desire for your birth to be? You give it a response, and they didn't dive deeper into what your response truly meant.
You guys, I don't know who's listening to this. Listen, y'all, what you just hit is a huge problem. When we talk about the medical field, when we talk about people of color, we talk about the distrust, we talk about the breakdown, we talk about all of these different things, we're not really having the conversation about how do we break this down? And it's by going deeper. It's about allowing us to have that one-on-one with a person and finding out who they are and finding out what they need and why are they having these mental blocks or these challenges due to their own personal experience. Doctors, nurses do not have time to do this. They have a lot of different people, and sometimes, just to be straight up, they don't want to do it. So we've got to figure out, how do we create a medical community that works together and sees the value in everything everyone's bringing to the table, and not one person is more valuable than the other. In order for us to have a healthy community and really usher in children into a world that cares about them, sees them, and wants to see them really strive and grow, we have got to do some really unique work in order to make effective changes. And the reason why I've been highlighting so many doulas is because I didn't realize the power of a doula, somebody that really cares about what they're doing and wants to be there for you. Now, am I saying all doulas are equal? No. There are doulas out there that are horrible. They probably should be practicing. However, what we want to start is, how do we highlight these doulas that are doing amazing work and are leaving the field? Because they are not being seen, they're not being heard, their practices are not being honored, they're not being compensated the way they need to, in my opinion, and in my view. And also, evidence backs this up. When people have doulas, regardless if the situation does not come out the way they wanted it to, they have someone there to process it with them, so the trauma does not keep perpetuating and it doesn't keep going. Tell us your next tip for us, Yokebed.
So the next one just kind of flows back into something that I previously mentioned. So determining if this pain that you're feeling is generational. Is it something that your mother has dealt with or is dealing with? Is it something that your grandmother, your aunts, your uncles, like diving in to see if this is a pattern of things that has been experienced in your household, or just like I said, generationally.
Yeah.
So once we can determine and pinpoint those things, now we can acknowledge it, because now that you're taking the time to heal yourself through it, you can spark a conversation with your mother. So now you can go back and have this conversation with her and be like, well, Mom, these are some of the things that I've noticed personally that I've had to deal with. Maybe you've experienced it. Now you got Mama healing through some of the things that she may have never known that she needed to heal through. And now, like I said, we're redeeming the bloodline, but you're taking it a step further, because now you actively have a hand on assisting somebody through that process. That's a direct connect to your bloodline. So now you talk about being a redeemer, like you out here doing the work.
Okay. I was not expecting that one. How powerful would it be for people to not only learn these tools, but take these tools and use them with people who don't have access to these tools? Go ahead, go.
I was just quick plug, because sometimes we accept certain behaviors and we speak that this is us. So like, I act this way, but girl, that's just me. And it's like, we have to get away from speaking these words against ourselves, or just accepting circumstances that were never meant to be our circumstances.
Wow.
Acknowledging it and then beginning to incorporate small changes that can help us renew our mindset. Because that's what it's going to take to kind of detour and heal from this stuff, is renewing your mindset. Taking the negative words that you've spoken over yourself and now speaking positively against those things.
Yes.
And so in turn, you're restructuring your mind the same way that our body and every cell in our body goes through a rejuvenation and change every couple of years. Our mind can be reset. It can be renewed. It can be restored to think differently than what we've been taught to think. But it starts with us not accepting the generational things that have been passed along. That's just like when you have a man who he's like, well, I never knew my father, and now he's out here having children, and for him it may just be, well, I don't know how to be a dad, so I'm just gonna step away. But then you have some that are like, okay, I didn't have a dad, but I'm gonna be 10 times more of a father to my children because I've never had that. Renewing the mind.
Wow.
He's coming in with a renewed mindset to do something differently than what he knew, because he doesn't want that thing to continue generationally. We got to stop accepting the behavior, renew our mindsets, and be that change that our ancestors weren't able to fully function in at the time.
Wow. I want to unpack this just for a little bit, because a lot of times we think that when a person gives birth or a person becomes a father, I'm going to be speaking, and Yokebed is going to be speaking from a mother-father standpoint, because both of us are wives and mothers and wives and husband, we have a husband, we wives, and we have children. So we're going to be speaking from that viewpoint. I always remind my audience that I recognize that there are other birthing people out there, but we want to be genuine. Especially on my podcast, I want to be very genuine to speaking to people's truths and their own lived experiences. So as you hear this, you may see things that are very connected in people's experiences, but we are going to be speaking from that point of view. So I just want to just stop for a second and just say that before I say this next thing I'm going to say. So a lot of times when people think of women giving birth or a man becoming a father, they think that's automatic, and they think there's like this magical fairy dust that comes down and you're just automatically this loving, nurturing mother, and you're this loving, nurturing father and a provider. And we are not dealing with the real truth. We are covering up the real truth with lies. And then when everything unfolds or snowballs, we're like, well, what's going on? I'm going to tell you what's going on. We have a system that is setting people and families up to fail because there's not space for them to deal with their past. There's not space for them to deal with the present. And there's not a path for them to get a real clear postpartum plan so that they can be successful with the continuum journey. If we look at our communities, what resources are there? There are some communities, they're flourishing. They really understand parent education. They understand about social skills, emotional skills. They understand about connecting community. They understand connecting as human beings. But there are a lot of communities that are so fragmented, so broken, very disconnected, very service-based, not community-based, not cultural-based, not investment-based. We are missing a whole conversation that needs to be had. And the question is, are we going to be strong enough to stand up and have it? Are we going to be strong enough to stand up and say, we deserve support no matter what part of life we're in, regardless if we are giving a live birth or our baby has passed on, or I've had a miscarriage, or I've gone through this or gone through that. We deserve support in every aspect of our lives. So we have to take the step forward and say, what can we do to help build a bridge in this big gap of real life issues that people are dealing with every single day? What is your last step for us today?
So I actually have two more.
Oh, we're on 4.
But
nope, go one more, and then we got one more. I'm thinking we're already on 5.
No problem. And this is for some a more unpopular step, but I always go to pray about it. This is one of the things that for some, when you know that the Most High has his hand over you, then you're able to cast all your burdens at his feet.
Yeah.
And so you realize that it's not a burden that you have to bear. Like you weren't created to have to fear delivery. You weren't created to have to fear not having a voice in the birth space.
Right.
And so taking some time to acknowledge what you've been through, and then just praying about that thing and releasing it over to him. It's like I like the story of, like, if you plant a seed. Yeah. Oftentimes you'll plant a seed, cover it up with the dirt, you waiting for it to germinate and sprout.
Yeah.
But are you that person that you plant that seed, you say that prayer about the situation, and then you keep going back, like, let me just go check and see if the Most High heard my prayers, and you uncovering that seed. You keep uncovering those seeds. It's never going to grow. It's never going to germinate. It's never going to do the thing that it needs to do. Yeah. And sometimes we have to acknowledge what we've been through, pray specifically about that thing, and then just release it over to him and allow the healing and everything to take place. That's where being able to journal about these things come into play. Or if you're a crafter, finding something that you can craft to kind of get your mind off of certain circumstances and things that you're going through. So now you can truly just be in shalom, at peace with what you're feeling and the circumstances that you're in. And so that's one of the ways that I also can help my clients through the laboring and delivery process, is because when you get to certain phases in that laboring process, it's beyond your control. Once you start, the only way to end that process is for a baby to be born, no matter how that baby is born.
Yeah.
And so you get to a point, and every mom hits that point where it's like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, once you hit that point, you realize you really are about to have your baby now. Like, you endured through all of that. Now you telling me I can't do this. I can't do this. In a few moments, you're about to have a whole live baby in your hands. And so that's where just like releasing it over and truly just allowing the Most High to do what he needs to do the work in you. And he may even reveal some things about yourself to you that you didn't even know. And it could take you back to the beginning of this healing process. So now you've healed through one aspect, and he's like, I appreciate that, but now I need you to go back to this step, because you got to heal through this as well too.
Okay.
It's layers to this thing.
You know what? You're like the third person that has been on this podcast that has literally brought up the spiritual component when we're talking about these spaces. I think so many times we're not looking at labor, delivery, pregnancy as a spiritual thing, and it absolutely is. For some people that have come on this podcast, you guys, I've been hearing all different aspects. Like, you know me, y'all, I want to hear it all. I want to hear it all, because I feel like a lot of times maybe you don't connect with something, and then somebody else connects with something, and something here. But one of the things that really resonated with me is one of the guests that came on, and they were saying, like, so many of us are broken spiritually. Like, it is a real fragmented thing, and especially within our culture, when we look at how religion and spirituality really had kept Black people specifically very much oppressed, and tricked them into thinking that they were meant for something, and it was not true. And so there is a brokenness in us when it comes to that spiritual part. And it's like, how do you regain that? How do you reconnect with that? And I really feel like having somebody one-on-one to help you figure that out it's crucial to your birth story. It's crucial to your path. And for some people, they may hear this and like, yeah, that's not me. That's okay. But to have this in the back of your mind, to think about maybe somebody else that it's important to, and to be able to pass that information on, I think it's crucial. It's important. And spirituality does not look like one way. There's so much that we don't know, and we have not really tapped into, because there's so many lies that have been layered upon layered upon layered upon layered. I love that tip. What's your next tip?
So my last tip is, be the change that others need you to be. Share your testimony. Speak about what you've gone through, what you've overcome, because that will not only help you heal, but it will also motivate others to take the necessary steps to start their healing journey. And so that is something that I personally learned through the years, is speaking up about the experiences that I've been through. Like, I share my stories when it comes to birth, and sometimes I kind of shy away from it, because I'm like, well, I don't want people to be like, well, Yokebed delivered her babies super fast and and now they feel like they have to do the same thing when they come into the birth space. But that is my personal story.
Yeah.
And so I'm just sharing it because it could be something to motivate somebody else who maybe they've had a horrible experience, and it's like, okay, well, I done seen Yokebed deliver 6 babies naturally. I done heard her story. She's had 2 birth center births, a hospital birth, and 3 home births.
Wow.
She has done 5 water births at home. She's had midwives and doctors at her deliveries. And then she's also just delivered these babies at home with just her husband and her children around. Like, I can share all of my different experiences, but in every aspect of that experience, I can relate in different ways with my clients.
Wow.
So if I have a client that's looking for a home birth, I can share my testimony of, this is my experience with my home births. And being that I've now had 3 home births, and all of them of varying differences, I can say, okay, I've delivered at home with a midwife. This was my experience. I've delivered at home with just me, my husband, and a neighbor and my children. This was our experience. I've delivered at home and had my mom and a couple of other sisters kind of come through and assist me. I can go through and share my testimony, and now that can help another mother through her process.
Yeah.
And so I like to be able to hear other people's stories. So one of the first things that I do when I connect with clients, when we're doing that initial consultation, and if you tell me that you've had previous children, we're going to talk about your previous births, because I want to know. For one, I'm excited, but then for two, it helps you to be able to just talk up about what you've gone through, the good or the bad. And now I'm able to see, okay, these are some areas that she may not even know need to be addressed, but we're going to address them because my sister is going to heal. And then she's going to go forth and deliver this baby just as she desired to.
You said something that I thought was really interesting about how you've had different like births, Yokebed, and I wanted to know, why in society do we see birth as like a barbaric thing? Why do you think we have this thought that birth is one of the worst things and it must be controlled and managed and systemized?
It's been forced on us. It goes back to, like I said, understanding the experiences that our ancestors have had to deal with. And a lot of it poured out through the slavery aspect of things, where women were forced to, at a certain point, be test dummies. Like they literally ran tests on us. And so it got to a point where I'll say like my parents' generation, where everybody at that point was pretty much delivering their babies in hospitals.
Yeah.
And so when I came out and I told my mom, like, Mom, I'm not going to the hospital. We about to go to this birthing center. It was almost foreign to her. And it was like, well, like, I hear you, but I love my mom, because she would always tell me like, well, I had my babies natural in the hospital, so it can be done. And so that goes back to sharing your testimony. I appreciated her testimony because it let me know that this can be done no matter what situation you're in. But it's also taking back a part of our history that was already ours. We were never birthing in hospitals and in controlled settings. It was literally like the grandma, the great grandmas and the aunties and the sisters was all gathering around to help this sister when her day came. They weren't out there getting 1,000,001 ultrasounds. We wasn't out here getting 1,000,001 tests run on us. You would literally, your belly will pop out, or your Mrs. Cycle and be like, oh, I'm pregnant, and now we just gonna ride this thing out until the baby comes. You get that nice little surprise at the end, because like I said, it wasn't no ultrasound, so you didn't have no ways of knowing whether it was a boy or a girl or twins. Like a lot of the times they was surprised with having multiples. But so yeah, it's look, it's the whole process is just amazing. And until we acknowledge the healing that needs to take place, we can't get to our end goal of being able to have that desired delivery that we're looking for. And the healing isn't hard. It's just the hardest part is taking that first step to acknowledge that you need healing. And it's as simple as saying like, look, I know I need help. I don't know exactly what I need help with, but I know I need some help. And now you're getting your mind into the opportunity to function of, okay, now let me pull out this journal and self-reflect. Step one. Let me start writing out exactly what it is that I need to how I think of myself, what it is that I need to deal with. And I'm going to self-evaluate and get through this. And then I'm going to just go through all the steps again. And then you're going to acknowledge the fears that you had and how those fears have overtaken or have overtaken your life and the way that you kind of operate and function. Because then you start to realize that a lot of those things that you fear, you kind of implement that onto your children unknowingly. And so making us those redeemers. You determine if this pain is generational, if what it is that you're enduring is generational, if it's something that your mother has dealt with. Now you can acknowledge it, you can bring it up to her, y'all can heal and deal with it. And now your future children won't have to deal with these things anymore, because it's not going to be something that they're exposed to, because you've healed from it. And then praying about it. And then, like I said, being the change that others need you to be. Not just holding that wealth of information or like, girl, I healed through this and now I'm good, but you don't go share this with your sister.
Yeah.
You don't go tell this to the brother. Or like for me, I always push my husband out there when it's other dads that are getting ready to go through this laboring process. If I'm working with a client and the husband is struggling or the partner is struggling, I'm like, look, babe, I need you to go talk to him, like have a conversation with him, because he's struggling, he's going through. Right. And he'll connect with them and have those conversations with them. And from that male's perspective, because they have a different experience when it comes to birth. And I love that he's able to openly share that. Like, it's so funny. It's to the point where like people are like, oh, husband's name is Obed Yahoo. It's like, oh, Obed Yahoo is he out here a whole OBGYN. And it's like, it's because he's delivered the last couple of our children. And just the way that he handles me in that situation, it's such an intimate moment. Yeah. But it helps me to see a whole nother side to your spouse going through that. And so now these are things that we can pass down to our children, to where my sons don't have to feel like they too strong to cry. You can tap into that soft side of you because it makes up who you are. But if we don't heal from things, then we're going to still feel like we have to operate and function with these walls up, and we don't.
Wow. Oh my goodness. You know, this conversation is like on point, because you also hit something that we don't talk a lot about. I've mentioned it, but we don't talk about it enough, which is, what do support systems look like for partners? What do they truly mean? Like, you have somebody that you can go to and say, hey, can I use you as a resource for this husband? And they can share that experience of fear, uncertainty, whatever that may be, and have somebody with lived experience really partnering with you and being there. And I have been saying this quite some time, which is, we need to get better support systems in place. And we need to be not only opening the space, but really empowering partners, men who are in these spaces, to be a part of the birth journey, and to really engage them and help them understand how they fit into the bigger picture. As we're talking about all of these different points, what's the one last thing you want our listeners to hear before we end our podcast about healing and birth, or conception, or loss? Like, where would you like to go with that last point today?
The last thing I would want to say is, if you don't heal, don't set yourself up to go through healing for something or for something else. Like, don't make it a process of, I want to heal because I want to have a baby, or I want to heal because of X, Y, and Z. Heal for yourself, and everything else will follow. We set ourselves up for failure when we try to do something for a specific outcome. And you don't want to have that mindset when you're coming into healing, because like I said, you can go in thinking you getting healed for one thing, and you'll be healed from that. And then the Most High will be like, okay, but now I need you to revisit this, because now that you done started this process, you know it can be done. I need you to go all the way through with it. And so don't heal for a person. Don't heal for a thing. Heal for yourself, and everything else will follow. That the desires you have for your birth, it will fall into place once you heal for yourself.
Y'all, you know my motto. Don't send somebody flowers and don't give them candy. Send them something that is going to feed their soul, mind, and spirit. So I don't know who needs to hear this podcast. I don't know who needs to be sent this podcast, but go ahead and make that click happen and send it on over this way. Yokebed, if people want to connect with you and want to learn more about how they can take this journey with you, where can they go?
So they can find me on my website, which is blessedqueensdoula.com. You can also find me on Instagram at Blessed Queens Doula, TikTok at Blessed Queens Doula, or Facebook, and it'll say Blessed Queens Doula as well. And that would be the easiest way to honestly just connect, find that plug. I am also hosting mother loving birth prep courses online. And these are free sessions where we will either be journaling or crafting, and I'll be doing them once a month. So the first one is actually coming up next week, so you still have time to register for it. And for that one, you will go to Aruka Wellness Co. And we'll plug all this information for you all. But arukawellnessco.com, and you'll be able to find Mother Loving Birth Prep, and it's going to be a workshop, and we're just going to do some journaling as we get moms to get into the right mindset of healing and preparing for labor.
Ooh, yeah, I'm just saying that is going to be so, I want to be a part of that, and I'm not even like pregnant right now.
Come
and
on in.
I just really want to be a part. Like, I love this so much, and I love everything that you're doing. When I saw your content, I was like, I've got to get Yokebed on here so that she can give us some knowledge and like just share this together and just take this space and just use it together to help bring healing and to build a better community, you guys. Even though we may not live in the same city, the same state, we all have something in common, which is we want a better community. We want people to birth in a way that's empowering, that's safe, that's loving and nurturing. And what better way to do it with a doula that can be there to help really support you and guide you on this new journey. I want to thank you so much, Yokebed, for coming by and just being here. I hope this is not the last time that we get together and do some things.
It cannot be the last time, Stephanie.
It cannot. At all. I just want to say thank you so much for being a part of this and sharing this space with me. And you guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. And remember, when all else fails, girl, get yourself a doula. Like, don't even try to sweat this stuff. There are people out there that are on your side and want to support you in your journey. Until next time, you guys, see you soon. Bye.
See you soon.